Hey, Jim, one other thing that a lot of the listeners have been sending in. Batista is on a press tour for his new movie Killer's Game, or The Killer's Game, according to this poster here. And he sat down for an interview with, I always get this either right or wrong, Chris Van Vliet, I think. But we have this for
our friend Chris.
You know him.
Well, I've never met him, but you've never met a lot of the people you call our friends every time you open a show.
The listeners are my friends.
Well, I'm sure Chris is a listener.
Well, I don't know about that, but let's go to this.
If he's smart, he is, but go ahead.
This is from the YouTube page CVV Clips. This is Batista on Jim Cornette. Let's go to this.
2002 is talked about all the time. It's legendary, right? Did that help you or hurt you? Like help you in the fact that you're learning and growing with Randy Orton and John Cena, Brock Lesnar and Shelton Benjamin? Or does it hurt you that now you need to do that much more to be better than them?
It didn't hurt me as far as they went. They only helped me. They only drove me. Like when you are surrounded by greatness, it brings out the best in you. And these guys, to say they were competitive would be a massive understatement. I mean, it was a class full of studs, man. These guys were athletes.
Let me stop it there for a second. Any problem with what he's saying?
No, I agree with him, and it's pretty much the consensus from everybody else that was named there that they all kind of felt. They all kind of felt that way.
Let's go back to Batista, see how he felt.
So I was good there. I needed them. Thank God they were there. What hurt me was my character that I had in OVW, because I really had, and I always get grief about this because people think that I don't respect Jim Cornette, and I really do. And the reason I do is because Jim Cornette taught us so much about the history of wrestling. He taught us so much about the traditions of wrestling. But I won't back down when I say that career, that character, it stunted my growth in OVW because I had nothing but squash matches. That's what I did.
Leviathan?
I went out in 2-3 moves and my matches were over. I had Goldberg matches.
Let me stop it here for a moment. There's a little bit more, but any initial thoughts on this?
Well, here's the problem. Yes, on TV, he had squash matches. And when we introduced him, he had some in house shows also. But Brian, you've seen some of the programs and some of the videotapes. Who did he wrestle at the big matches at the Louisville Gardens? The Big Show, Paul White. That one, The Big Show.
Yeah.
He also wrestled Kane. Glenn Jacobs Kane.
He was the guy to wrestle the giant muscular wrestlers.
Yes, he also, when he lost, because he was going to the WWF or WWE, he lost to the guy named The Prototype, who was John Cena. I think the match went fucking 14, 15 minutes, whatever. And then there was the problem of the classes. We didn't fucking say, goddamn, don't come to class. We didn't say, I'm not saying he didn't come, but I'm saying we didn't say don't come to class, just do TV squash matches. He was in the classes, except when he was injured. And he was doing everything everybody else was because it didn't matter what your gimmick was in class. And Rip Rogers was teaching the same things verbally to everybody that was there. Regardless of what their gimmick on television was. And Dave at that time, I've said he was very meek and I appreciate the nice things he said about me. And I'm not saying anything bad about him, except he was very meek and he seemed very unmotivated a lot of times because I don't think he was comfortable with the gimmick because, Brian, let me ask you a question. You loved horror movies when you were a kid, like all fucking young boys. We like to watch the creature features, right?
Well, my era was Friday the 13th and Nightmare on Elm Street and Child's Play. It was a great series of movies, yeah.
The scary movies, right?
Yeah, lots of fun.
And Michael Myers a cool motherfucker, right? And Jason.
Never got into Halloween.
Well, okay, but I'm saying the stars of these movies, whether it's Frankenstein because you're 100 years old, you're as old as Carl Laemmle like me, or whether it's goddamn, or whatever.
What a reference. What, you win today. You're the winner.
But the point is, Here's this guy, he looks like that. Why have you shaved your head and fucking jacked yourself up to weigh 340 pounds at 6'5" and you got these tattoos? If you don't want to, and somebody gives you the opportunity to play a fucking monster in a horror movie and you're not having fun with it, you wanted to instead Batista, when he was dressing like James Bond and sunglasses and he was a ladies' man.
Well, the other thing is, you and anyone else who knew anything about wrestling, you wouldn't have thought more than likely that they're going to bring up someone who looks like that and at the time moved like that and have him wrestle classics. That would have been an unreasonable thought to train him towards that, wouldn't it have?
Well, and also, like, when Big Show came in, he understood, right? I said, we're building this guy. He's the monster. You're coming in as the irresistible force for the immovable object. And he was calling shit where Dave would spear him out of his fucking boots. And Dave would give him the big, belly to back, whatever the fuck, and do all of his shit so he could help get this guy over. So it wasn't like squash matches when he's wrestling. And Glenn did the same thing. And as a matter of fact, the way that we beat him against Kane was that Steve Austin rolled in at the big Christmas Chaos show, Steve Austin rolled in and gave Batista Leviathan a stone cold stunner, and then Kane choke slammed him or whatever the fuck. We protected him. He was never beaten because he wasn't a good enough worker back then to get beat looking like that and still not kill himself. That's industry terminology. I don't mean he would commit suicide. I mean, when a guy was green and looked like that in the territory days, unless you beat him in certain ways to protect him, and he didn't know any better than to just let somebody fucking beat him, then it would kill him. It would kill him off. It would bury him, as they say. So that was the strategy, and that's what he got over to our audience more than almost any, whether it be Cena or Lesnar or whatever, as the personality that he had here. The people turned him babyface because it was so fucking, it was something they enjoyed, right? But the point is, I said it a different way rather than, yes, we were pointing him to, I figure I can train him for pay-per-view matches and runs and rivalries with The Undertaker, with Big Show, with Kane, with some of go back and look at the roster in 2001, 2, 3. There was a few more there. Mark Henry, who was training with him down here a lot at the same time. But also the way I told him, I said, you can't go out there and start taking arm drags in the second match. Your look is also a handicap. And I mean, I've seen pictures of him lately. He's dropped a lot of weight. I hope everything's all right. But everybody go back to a picture of him. At one point, right before he got here, he weighed 375 pounds.
Wow, he was that big?
When he was training, I believe, with Alpha, I think when he started.
Wow.
And it's not like he was a fat fucking guy, right? But when we got him, I'm going to say he was between 335, 345. And then he got a little leaner because, as I've mentioned, when he started in OVW, he'd only made a few weeks of classes, tore either a bicep or a tricep, something involving his arm. It's been 25 years, pardon me, where he had to get surgery and he had to sit out for a few months. And he was observing classes and he dropped some weight. But point is, how the fuck is he going to go through developmental and him show up as an unknown fucking guy to do a local dark match? You couldn't, no, you can't be taking arm drags in the second match. You have to be a main event guy the way that you look, or be used somehow in the periphery of a fucking top spot, or elsewise it's fucking ridiculous. And that's what we were doing.
Well, let's go back to this audio once again.
Oh, there's more.
From the CVV Clips site or a page on YouTube. Here's Batista promoting the Killer's Game.
I didn't I didn't progress like the rest of the guys. I didn't progress like Brock Lesnar or Randy Orton. You know, even those guys are incredible athletes. And, you know, obviously with Randy being a legacy, you know, I think he was born, bred into this business. But I was just stunted a little bit. I never got to speak on the mic. I spoke on the mic a few times, and it was me screaming into the mic. But I think my growth there was, it was a little bit stunted. And I went into the WWE completely unprepared. And it was like a whole new learning curve. And I'll remember it, and I will say it over and over, that Fit Finley in a day changed my life. You know, I went, and that was kind of a last-stitch effort. You know, John Laurinaitis sent me down to work with Fit. And Steve Regal, Dave Taylor, and Fit just took me aside and just started talking to me.
Well, there it is. That's the end of the clip.
Well, and there was a last-ditch effort, because here's another of the problems. I don't want to say he wasn't motivated, but Dave was not he was a very meek giant. He didn't speak. He just sat around waiting for things to be told to him a lot in those days. I remember him mostly sitting in the corner with his hoodie. We didn't just fucking burst out and tell Brock Lesnar, hey, do a shooting star press at this show at the Gardens. You know why we did? We knew he could do it because he's had practice. He was like, hey, let me do this. Let me try this. He got the crash pads out. Everybody was trying to do shit. When a guy that's 300 pounds says to me, I'm going to do the shooting star press, okay. And I asked Danny Davis, can he do it? Oh, yeah, he did it. All right. But I'll give you an example. It was the Rising Sun, Indiana event. Les Thatcher, the HWA, he was working with him also, the WWE developmental. And he gets a sold casino show. There's a casino up there, right? And it was quite a bit of a money deal for his promotions. So he got one of the bigger WWE stars time, who was Kane, to come down and appear because Glenn knew Les from Smoky Mountain, etc. And I brought Leviathan up to wrestle him in the main event, because then we could put on the pictures of Leviathan on the posters. Hey, kids, make your parents bring you to the casino. Look at these two motherfuckers, right? And it was also because that was part of the program. Again, as I mentioned, Dave was in all the classes with all the other guys, that he could do anything he wanted to fucking do if he asserted himself. And everybody was getting taught the same things. So, and I was teaching him how to work a gimmick that might lead him, same way I did Glenn, to a multi-year program with The Undertaker for pay-per-view. I didn't think that Dave Batista was going to be in the third match on a pay-per-view in a clinical classic. But anyway, so we get Dave and Glenn sat down in the locker room at the casino show, and Glenn knew the drill. He knew what I was trying to do. And he asked David, what do you do? Dave said, oh, whatever you want. No, what do you do? And I had to sit there and say, look, he does the spear. He does the spine buster. Because Dave is just like, oh, whatever you want to do. He was just... So we were giving him these opportunities. I don't know what Fitz said that made the bell ring. Maybe it was that they had sent him down there as the last gasp. Maybe the last gasp made the bell ring. The next person that talked to him gave him a good idea, but I don't know. Maybe he just needed more personal reassurance and petting, because everybody else would just say, hey, do your shit.
Well, there it is, the comments of Batista promoting his new film about Jim.
No, wait a minute. We won that suit. He cannot make a new film about me.
No, that's not what I was saying. That's not what I was saying.
You said he was promoting his new film about Jim. We got the script squashed. As a matter of fact, it's stamped confidential.
What do you think when you hear him say that he respects you, that people are wrong when they say he doesn't, that he really does?
Well, it's nice that he's clarified things, because originally the bone of contention was, from what I recall again, after the years have gone by, his blanket statement in his book was, I didn't learn anything in OVW. And I'm like, really? You didn't learn anything from Danny Davis, from Rip Rogers, from all of the WWE affiliated trainers and coaches and producers that came down, from Tom Pritchard to Al Snow. I can't remember who was going through at his specific time period. From all of those classes with all of those other guys that said they learned so much. How did all this escape you just because we didn't have anybody else that was capable of going 15 believable minutes with your giant freakish fucking ass?
And you mean that in a good way?
In a good way, yes. It violates every rule of fucking wrestling not to put that guy on Again, I dare anybody, go back and look at a picture from 2001 of Leviathan in OVW and tell me that you would have this guy get on TV and not just beat up 2 or 3 people at a time in about a minute to promote having to buy a ticket to see him against Kane or against the Big Show or against the OVW champion, whoever that may be at the time. That ain't going to be on TV. That's why you got to pay to see it. Motherfucker, this is goddamn wrestling. If you can't learn how to think about the business rather than just be a monkey and do moves, from that concept, I don't know what to tell you.